All right, before we get to today's video, let me tell you about a trip we have coming up for adventure drives in the end of January. It's January 27th to February 1st, starting in Savannah, Georgia, and going all the way down to Miami, Florida for 2 nights. And that's starting in Savannah at the JW Marriott, phenomenal hotel, making our way through the Wormslow Plantation, all the way down into Florida. We're going to Daytona Beach. We get to drive cars on the beach. That's always a good time. Staying in Daytona at the Autograph Hotel, which is like a super cool car-themed hotel, before making our way down, doing some fan boat rides and other fun stuff on the way to Miami. We're at the One Hotel in Miami for 2 nights, which, as you know, is a phenomenal property. Looking forward to having a good time. If you have any sort of anxiety about driving through mountain roads very quickly with other people, this is your trip, because you get to go out, you get to have a good time, you get to pop the convertible top down in the middle of the winter and have a great time hanging out and experiencing fun stuff with us. If you're interested, check the link in the description, adventuredrives.com. I will see some of you guys out there end of January, January 27th, Savannah, Georgia. All right, guess what? I've got an update here from the city of New York regarding my noise camera tickets that I got on my rental car, which is over there. And this is sort of expected, but sort of a little bit of a letdown. But when you think of governments, they suck, right? Like I got, and this throws me back to Ramapo Court in New York once, or Ramapo, New Jersey, wherever it was, where I got a ticket that was complete BS, where I pulled up on a street racing spot. Now, I was a street racer, but this was not something that I was involved in. I was driving, it was probably 1 in the morning on 287. These guys were going out to race. I'm like, I'm gonna wait till they go. And we usually raced on the Garden State Parkway, but I was going back to the school I was at the time, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go to the school after they all leave. Waited for them to leave, started driving down the highway, and they went and raced on a different highway. They raced on 287, which is somewhere we never race on, but I was like, well, that's stupid. So then eventually, like, I pull up, and the cops have a little roadblock funnel, and I'm like, these guys are screwed. And they point at me and point to the side, and I'm like, the hell did I do? And they gave me a ticket for 110 plus and a 55. I'm like, bro, I didn't do anything. So I'm like, I'm taking this to court. I am not letting this fly. And I go, the judge, like, they play all their games. I'm like, there's no supporting deposition, no evidence that I was doing 110 miles an hour. Well, the officer, I think his name was Strafacci or something like that. I don't know why I remember this 20 years later, came out and said, like, oh yeah, I saw you doing it. And I'm like, no, you didn't see me doing it. And there's no proof I did it. They waited till everybody else was out of the courtroom. So it was just me, the judge, and this guy. The guy went into the back, filled out a supporting deposition, and handed it to me like, are you ready to go to trial? I'm like, what sort of crackerjack shit is this? And you know what, Judge, we did our little trial. I'm like, there's no evidence I wasn't doing it. I wasn't involved in any of this. There's no way he could have seen me. Like, what color is my car? He's like, it's black. I'm like, it's blue. Like, you don't even have the color right. Then the judge said, well, the officer is out in the interest of justice, so I'm going to find you guilty. So I got found guilty of doing 110 miles an hour when I wasn't speeding. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And like, there's no plea deal at that point in time. It's done. The only thing I can do is continue to appeal it through the appeals process, which for something as stupid as a speeding ticket was very frustrating. I got my justice in the end because that court was raided by the FBI and like shut down. I'm like, ha, bitches. And I reached out to the FBI about that. I'm like, yeah, that was part of the problem. So courts are not always just, but hopefully justice wins out in the end. That's pretty much the story of my life right now. But here, this is the judge decided that the ticket would be sustained. So I was like, oh, son of a bitch. Like, not unexpected. They only sent me the one decision, even though they were both at the same time. So I'm expecting this is an 11/25 hearing date, but this was sent on 12/2. So this was sent out a week after the hearing. I probably got it 2 or 3 weeks ago. But I was waiting for the second one to come in, which still hasn't come. The problem is this was the first offense, right? And it'll be really weird if she like dismisses one and not the other. That would be weird because it was the same testimony on both. So we'll reserve to see how that plays out. But this is an $800 ticket, which means the next one I'm about to get from the same guy is no longer an $800 ticket because this is guilty. The second one is going to be $1,500. So now we're at $2,500 for, is it $2,500? Yeah, $2,500. $2,300. That was bad math. Bad math, Rob. $2,300 for 2 tickets. And maybe I'm thinking it's $1,700 for the second offense. That's why it was $2,500 in my head. Whatever it is, thousands of dollars for driving a Ferrari that's bone stock through New York. That's a problem. Now let's go through what they found in this situation. They said Findings of fact and conclusions of law. Robert Ferrari, authorized representative, appeared via court call on 11/25. Inspector Antoine Gibbs appeared on behalf of the DEP. Mr. Ferrari waived his right to counsel and need for translation services. Mr. Ferrari waived his right to request the presence of the issuing officer. I don't remember waiving my right to the presence of the issuing officer because the issuing officer is a computer. But that is what it is. The summons was issued on 8/31/25 in violation of Statute 24-236E. Inspector Gibbs submitted an evidence packet along with videos. Mr. Ferrari requests dismissal based on the camera calibration. The camera was calibrated May 1st, 2024, more than a year prior to the summons issuance. Mr. Ferrari further asserts that the respondent is a leasing company and should not be responsible for the driver's actions. Mr. Ferrari submits a vehicle rental agreement covering the issuing time. Mr. Ferrari, which they spelled my name wrong, further states that the vehicle was sold in New Jersey and passed all inspections. Inspector Gibbs stands by the violation and states that the petitioner did not need to provide a certificate of calibration, as it is the respondent's burden to prove that the camera was calibrated incorrectly. It's not my camera. How am I going to prove, if I can't stand there and play a noise and see what the reading is, I can't go test the calibration of the camera. You can't put that burden on me. So that's a weird defense, but that's not even the weirdest defense that they have here. And I can further prove, and I'm going to have to appeal this now, that the camera manufacturer, whatever the book that guides the calibration periods and everything like that, says that that camera has to be calibrated inside every year to maintain accuracy. I didn't have that at the time. I didn't have any of these details, but now that I do, I'm going to have to go fight this again, which is very frustrating. This is a very rubber stamp, bubble gum court process, which is very frustrating because they're not out in the interest of justice. It should be the state's job to prove that the camera was recording properly, and they do that by having calibration tests. That's why there's standards. The camera, the breathalyzer, was calibrated prior to giving somebody the breathalyzer. This is a common thing, that the burden is on the government to prove that the recording was right and to prove that it was accurate. Instead, they're saying, I have to prove that the camera wasn't recording properly. And I gave them more than enough to have reasonable doubt. I said the camera wasn't calibrated in the last 16 months or whatever it was at the time, and that's a long time period. I'm giving reasonable doubt that that camera calibration may not have been accurate. It may not have been an accurate reading. I also said that I've gotten no other tickets on this car or any of my other cars except for this one camera on this one car. So statistically, if the car was driving normally, you can't say that that camera was recording properly. And those were my main arguments, which I think were very reasonable. And I had more than enough supporting arguments to say, all right, there's reasonable doubt here that that reading may be inaccurate. And now they're making me prove that it was inaccurate, which is a very frustrating thing. The next one, it says, once petitioner established its case, the burden shifted to the respondent to either refute the charge or establish a defense. Respondent did not do so. While it is a defense that the camera apparatus was malfunctioning at the time the incident occurred, a respondent has the burden of proving that defense by a preponderance of the evidence. And then they cite a case law, which is Youngsman, Dawn, appeal number, blah, 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 September 25th, 2025, which is actually pretty recent. This one's my favorite now. By operating or causing the vehicle to be operated by way of renting to others, respondent caused the total sound to exceed the sound level set forth in VTL Statute 386 in violation of Code 24-236E. So what they're saying is that I caused the noise by renting it to somebody. That's like saying Ferrari caused the speeding by selling somebody the car. It's not, you can't do that. And that's why, and now, as I said, everybody that drives that car, this is a use violation. This is not an equipment violation. I did not make the car louder. And I'm not making the car speed. Ferrari is not making the car speed when they sell it to you. But the use has to be applied to the person responsible. What they've done here is made me their collection company. And they said, this guy is, the renter is entitled to a trial. I can't say, sorry, you owe me the money. The renter is entitled to a trial. He's entitled to prove the case. The fact that they're taking the stance that by renting a car to somebody, that means Hertz is responsible for every accident in the Hertz car because they enabled it by renting it to them. It's a very stupid defense. I am going to have to fight this just for that purpose, because it's now putting sort of black marks on my car, because the next time that car goes through, it's going to be a $2,200, $2,500, $2,800 ticket. And you can't have somebody operate a Ferrari normally in New York, which is a legally sold and registered car, driving without doing anything wrong, and then get issued a ticket. And then, by the way, hey, here's $2,500. You owe that. You owe this. I can't do that. I can't operate a business like that. This decision was stupid. I thought I gave them more than enough information to recognize that and realize that. This is the findings. The respondent presented no evidence that the camera had malfunctioned at the time it registered the noise emanating from respondent's vehicle. Furthermore, respondent did not provide evidence reflecting the level of sound the vehicle produced. I mean, I could present the evidence that the car makes, like, whatever, 60 decibels at 2,000 RPM, but I can't show in that video what RPM the car was at. I mean, the amount that I'm going to have to go through, and I may have to do this, and I may have to drive that car and measure the street and go recreate that and get my own sound measuring device tested with an expert to fight this. And I'm a YouTuber. I'll probably do that. I'll get a sound measuring company experts and I'll get this dismissed. But this is bullshit. Additionally, one cannot legally drive a car in New York City that has a louder exhaust than is permitted by New York laws, even if the car is registered in another state. And then they do case law for that. In the absence of probative evidence to contest the petitioner's case, respondent is in violation. Well, now, the fight is going to continue. I'm waiting to see, and like, I hope this is Malka Daniel, judicial hearing officer. So I don't even know if it's a judge. It's a judicial hearing officer. I would assume it's a judge of some sort. I referred to them as judge. But this is not an adjudication of a just adjudication of this. To me, this is a stupid fight, but it's a fight I'm going to have to now take on between me, Whistle and Diesel, everybody, my town even. There's so many stupid, small judicial annoyances that have to be corrected. Luckily, I have a YouTube channel where it makes it a little bit more palatable, that I can bring this experience to other people and give these defenses, and maybe there'll be some case law that has a Ferrari involved in it, or maybe it would be my company, I guess not this. But it would be nice if politicians actually did their job and prevented dumb, stupid annoyances like this from impacting everyday activities that are taking place. So we're not talking about speeding here. We're not talking about the degree of speeding. We're talking about a legally registered car, a legally sold car in New York. They sell Ferraris in New York too. There's nothing that says like we're not allowed to sell Ferraris. Guns, for example. If the guns have illegal things, they can't be sold in certain states. Different story. This is not that. This is not a car that is not sold in New York. New York sells Ferraris. There's a Ferrari on Long Island. They sell Ferraris in New York. So you can't, and even Wide World of Cars sells Ferrari in New York. You can't sell cars in your state and then say it's illegal to operate them in the state. It makes no sense because these are not modified. It's very stupid, and the fight will continue. Rob Ferretti, thank you for watching. If you have anything that would support my case, shoot me an email at rob@superspeeders.com. If not, stay tuned, and I'll let you know how this plays out.